Moat on the volley, and back corner. What a start for West Bromwich Albion. Unbelievable! West Bromwich Albion have ruined his big day.
Line again, and it's Adam Wingy who gets the final touch, and West Bromwich Albion now have a 2-goal cushion.
The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello Baggies fans and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Today, back again with another match reaction episode of the podcast, episode 55 to be completely precise, reacting to Albion's last gasp win against Peterborough United, a 1-0 win right at the death, a Semi Ajayi goal securing 3 points in a very scrappy affair, ended in some very scrappy encounters post-match. We'll be talking all about that, getting your thoughts on the game as well in today's episode. But if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe to the Baggies Podcast wherever you're listening from, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. YouTube is probably the most important one where I need your subscriptions, because we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, nearly on 700 there or thereabouts now. So make sure that you're subscribing to the podcast YouTube channel and our podcast platforms wherever you're listening from. Leave us a nice review as well if you're feeling kind. But let's get straight into this match reaction episode of the Baggies Podcast, reacting to Albion 1, Peterborough 0.
Well, I think it's Semi Ajayi, the man who scored. There are Albion fans on the pitch. What a way to win a game, Andy.
So you've just heard Semi Ajayi's last-minute winner for Albion. Wow, what a game for West Bromwich Albion in the end. Last-minute feeling, last-minute goal. There's nothing really like it in football, and I think, you know, Albion, we get that done to us far too many times. We deserve our win or we deserve our point, and we end up going away with nothing because so many, we lose concentration in the last minute. You know, it happens to us so many times. I think it's about time that we relished our own moment, relished our own opportunity, and the ball hits the back of the net in the last minute for Albion. I mean, it was fantastic to see, and obviously I saw the limbs, from in the stadium, in the stand, the fantastic players opposite, the players going towards the fans, celebrating in front of the fans. It was really lovely to see, and I'm sure that a lot of Albion fans will cherish that moment for quite some time, because it really was a special moment to be in the crowd, to be with the fans for Albion. And I'm sure that a lot of you guys who were at the game really enjoyed yourself, and I'm glad that you did eventually. But we'll talk a bit more about the performance now, because obviously the goal was special, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But it was a last minute thing. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. It was really a last-minute goal from Albion, and a last-minute pickup of the 3 points. It was quite close for quite some time, and I think for Albion it was definitely left too late, to be honest. For starters, we'll talk about the first half, and then we'll go through the lineup. But the first half, and probably up until about 70 minutes, I thought we looked quite. It was probably the most disjointed and uncohesive performance from under Valerian Ismail so far. I think it was pretty disappointed. I mean, I think I was disappointed for one. I was pretty disappointed with the performance. I think we just didn't quite get things going in the attacking third. It didn't look like really anybody wanted the ball so much. I just think it looked a bit disjointed and it looked a bit uncohesive. And I think a lot of Albion fans were pretty disappointed with what they saw in the first half there. To be honest, I think for Albion it looked pretty disjointed, pretty uncohesive, as I've said, but I just can't put my finger on what was actually going wrong. We just couldn't get the ball forward quick enough. Peterborough occasionally, making our midfield a bit overloaded, a bit outnumbered in there with Livermore and Moat, but then they had people like Grant chipping in. They had You had the lad who came on in the second half, Jack Taylor, who was in there. They had Sammy Schmodix in there as well. So they were kind of outnumbering us. And then they had the wing-backs occasionally coming into the centre, like Joe Warden and Harrison Burrows, who kept sort of chipping in and just moving in field and sort of outnumbering our midfield in that respect. And they did that up well in credit to Darren Ferguson, who I'm sure we'll get onto a bit later on in the episode. But they did that quite well, overloading the midfield and trying to get things involved and trying to get players in and around our two midfield men, not our three midfield men, our two midfield men. So yeah, I think it was very interesting to see that happen. But I was really pleased with the way that we kept fighting, and I was pleased with the never say die attitude instilled by Valérien Ismaël, as we talked about. He talked about the philosophy, the attitude of the players, and all that jazz. And I think it just went so well, to be honest, for Albion towards the end of the game, where we started to really overload Peterborough. But we'll talk a bit more about the last stage of the game a bit later on in the episode, because obviously that's something that's really starting to take flight, and something that's really out battling teams due to our determination late on in the game. So we'll talk about, it was pretty flat towards in the first half. Obviously, the stats of the game tell you that we should have won. We created 2.31 xG from 14 chances created, 3 shots on target, 10 shots off target. So we were getting the ball on target. It was just a problem of creating a greater load of chances. I think obviously we created a load at Blackburn last time out, and we created a load out in that game. Obviously accumulating 4.02 xG, which I think was pretty shambolic to only score 2 from that. But I think it was pretty difficult to see. We'll talk about the lineup now. Let's talk about who we played, what changes we made, and how those players played in the game. So in goal, we played Sam Johnstone. Obviously, we played Arsenal in midweek, where we ended up playing a kids team. Well, actually, let's go into that a bit. If you want to see a full sort of low-down post-match reaction, there was one at the end of my matchday vlog that I did on the YouTube channel, where I went to the game, filmed the atmosphere and all that jazz, and filmed some of the clips of the game. But yeah, if you want to go and see that, I recommend you go and check that out, because it was, it's pretty my thoughts at the end of the game are well summarised, as they were quite instant after the game. But yeah, we played a load of kids, essentially, a load of the young lads, which I felt was a bit harsh on them to be given such an opportunity, with so many of them coming into the first team at one time. There wasn't particularly much experience in the team. Only 4 senior players, I think, in the side for that, with Kipre, Snodgrass, and also Adam Reach as well. So yeah, it's quite difficult to see, quite difficult to go for. But in my opinion, I think the young lads will have learnt a lot from that. But I do think it's a little harsh on them to play them all at the same time. Obviously, check out the matchday vlog for that. But there was 11 changes, to be fair, from the lineup that played that. We had in goal with Sam Johnstone, who I thought did really well coming out and sweeping the back line as he did last week, and did not so well, really. Only really had to make probably 1 save, but 5 times he acted as a sweeper in behind the back line, which I said, fair play to him, and massive fair play to Sam Johnstone for starting to add that into his game. That's a massive part of modern football now. So many managers going for the higher line, and so many managers playing that higher defensive line. It's so important for West Brom to be able for Sam Johnstone to be able to find his feet in that sort of system, and to find his ability and his way, really, in what is a difficult role for him, and a different role for him as well. You have to give massive credit for a goalkeeper to adapting his game this late on, really. Well, not this late on, but at this stage in his career, really. I think you look at Sam Johnstone, and he's now 28 years old, but he's starting to really bring sweeping into his game, and it's fair play to him for changing. A lot of players will say, well, I've done this for the whole of my career. It's pretty pointless trying it out now, so I won't bother at all. So yeah, fair play to Sam Johnstone for bringing it and starting to really work hard at his sweeping. I think it's something that can be credited for him, and something that can be really praised, to be honest, for somebody stepping into a different role this late on in his career and trying something different, because obviously it takes a lot of guts to mould your game at this stage in your career. So fair play to Sam Johnstone. Deserve a lot of credit for that. So yeah, let's get straight into a bit of the defence, because Sam Johnstone obviously did impress me with his sweeping again. Obviously made a mistake against Blackburn, and to come back and keep doing it is obviously very good to see for his confidence, and good to see for his ability, and a player of his quality. It's just fantastic that he stayed with us, really. I hope that he can stay a bit longer, and maybe after deadline day we might see a little bit of movement, really, for Albion. In terms of a contract for Sam Johnstone. But into the back three, where Dara O'Shea, I think, was the man who really turned up in this game. I thought he looked really physical, really met Peterborough's competitiveness with his quality in the defence. So I think he looked very good, and I think he should be awfully pleased with his performances so far this season. He's just been incredible. 5 matches, I know he scored twice, which I suppose isn't really his job, but in every single game he's really impressed me with his physicality, his progressive nature on the ball, his wanting to get forward, wanting to get in on the act every single time he's got the ball. He deserves a lot of credit for this, and I feel like he's done a sensational job this season, and I think he's nailed it down, this starting spot. I think there's no way that he's not. There's no way in hell that he's not nailing down this spot for the rest of the season unless he gets injured. I think he's done an incredible job so far, Dara O'Shea, and deserves a hell of a lot of credit for what he's done so far this season, and for really digging in deep and starting to get involved in the first team for real this time. Obviously, he's been in and out of the first team over the past couple of seasons. We've wanted to see him. We wanted to see him more in depth, and we wanted to see him really nail down that spot. And I think he might just be doing that right now. Dara O'Shea under Valérien Ismaël. You should be ultimately impressed with his performance. Really matching people's physicality. Big strikers. Johnson Clark Harris is a big striker. Really matched his physicality and did really well against him, and indeed Jack Marriott as well. So fair play to Dara O'Shea. You've been incredible so far. Carl Bartley came off at half time, which was a shame to see. Him coming off, obviously done all right this season with the simple things that he's had to do. He came off at half time. That is due to illness, due to feeling a bit unwell, which was a shame for him. I mean, it gives another person a chance, I suppose, and it gave Adam Reach a chance to come on, and Connor Townsend dropped into centre back. But so it's a shame that it's a real shame that he came off. I think obviously, hopefully he'll be better by after the international break, the pesky international break that's going to come and break up our season yet again, which is very annoying. Unfortunate for Carl Bartley having to come off. One of our more senior players in that back line. I'm surprised Caleb Taylor didn't come on. I was really impressed with him in midweek against Arsenal, and I'd like to see him getting more of an opportunity. But yeah. Fair play to Townsend for stepping into the back line, and Adam Reach coming on. Obviously, Adam Reach, I don't think many people have been massively impressed with him, but he's been all right so far. And fair play to them for stepping in. But Carl Bartley, we hope he gets well soon, and hope he feels a lot better, and maybe we'll see him back in the defence after the international break. Obviously, gives him a nice chance to recover, calm himself down, and get better, hopefully. So, yeah, we'll talk a bit more now about Semi Ajayi, who was absolutely incredible. I think he was really, really good. I thought he looked fantastic. I thought, just in defensively, pacing behind. I know he's a pace merchant. I know a lot of people say that about him, and I would be inclined to agree, to be honest. But I think his reading of the game is still leaves a bit to be desired. But for me, I personally think that his reading of the game is quite good at times. I think when he comes out from the back line, every time he wants to win it. Every single time he comes out the back line, he's wanting to win it. And sometimes he doesn't, and that's where people lead him. He leads to mistakes, fouls committed, and stuff like that, which ends up more often than not in the back of our net. However, I've been really impressed with Semi Ajayi in that game against Peterborough. Really good, very physical. Of course, loving getting involved in the goal as well. His celebration said a lot, and I don't know what he was doing up there. Let's talk a bit about that now, because Semi Ajayi obviously scored that last minute winner by being up the pitch, not from a set piece situation, not from a corner, not from a free kick or anything like that. Matt Phillips obviously drove the ball. We'll talk a bit more about that him in a bit. Obviously, of course, I keep saying that, and I will get round to all of these players that I'll be talking about later on in the episode. But I thought that Matt Phillips' drive was fantastic. Then we got to Semi Ajayi, who was there, and he tapped home after being really in the game and sort of just up front in a way, really. So yeah, I'm buzzing with him. And he did really well. And yeah, a goal for him is just desserts after a good game from Semi Ajayi. In my opinion, I think we did look a bit nervy at the back at times. Obviously, that comes from having a left back playing centre back. It comes from having a left wing back who's just coming into the team. But Semi Ajayi with his game was pretty decent. I thought nice with the duels, one in the air, eight duels, 2 clearances. Making those tackles, making those aerial duels one, and making the ball his more often than not. So fair play to Semi Ajayi. Really worked really hard and got his goal at the end. But I do have to say about how open we looked at the back towards the last stage of that game. You saw Dara O'Shea win the ball back for that goal, and the ball comes up the field, and we ended up, I think it was like a 4-on-2 with Peterborough, because they were pushing players forward and we were. But we ended up with the one, in a 4-on-2. But I suppose it worked more in our favour because we chucked the ball straight down the pitch and scored from it because they were outnumbered at the back. But we really threw players forward, and it could have really gone either way if one of their players had ended up through on goal like ours did. I think it was a bit worrying, really. It made it quite nervy, and that's why I say at the back it looked a bit scary, because we ended up with quite a lot of players off up in the opposition box, which is a little bit worrying. I was a bit worried. But yeah, we'll talk more about what happened in the midfield now. But we did look a bit worrying at the back towards the last stage of that game. But I suppose that's Val's style. He wants us to get forward, wants us to get involved in the game a bit more. And fair play to him for wanting us to do that. Furlong caused the controversy, really, with his towels, or should I say hoodies, because he was the man who was taking the throw-ins and was lent a hoodie from somebody in the crowd. I think it was pretty... I guess you can do that, but yeah, I suppose I can understand why it did annoy Peterborough fans, but I can't really understand why it annoyed Darren Ferguson, who really did throw his toys out the Prem after the game, having a confrontation with Valerian Ismail towards the end of the game, pointing fingers, shouting, and all that jazz. I think it was a little bit unjust, to be honest. I thought it was a little bit harsh to be going so mad about a towel or a hoodie. I think yes, chucking it in from the crowd can bring COVID, but is anybody massively bothered? Does anybody really care? I mean, if it was your team, I'm sure that you wouldn't mind somebody using a hoodie from the crowd to dry a ball with. Obviously you mentioned COVID and stuff, but I really don't think that's too much of an issue. I don't see why that was a problem, to be honest. But yeah, Darnell Furlong I thought played well. His long throws obviously not quite as effective, causing a bit of a ruckus and a bit of fear among the Peterborough fans, but not too much and not massively over the top. But yeah, we'll talk a bit about the midfield now, because Alex Mowat played again and was pretty decent on the ball. Battled well, obviously received his third booking of the season, third booking in 5 games, which is slightly worrying. All he needs to do is get to 5, and then he's got a 1-match suspension. Jake Livermore, I think, was a little bit lost in terms of when we got a bit outnumbered in midfield. I think he did look a little bit I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here kind of thing. And I think it was a little bit worrying that he ended up in those situations, being outnumbered by players. I think, when he was picking up the ball, I think he was looking for options and giving the ball away more times than keeping it. But Alex Mowat alongside him just looks class. I think he just looks quite comfortable on the ball and quite in control of what he's doing. I think, he battles well in the midfield and he's got a lot of grit and determination, and I rate that from Alex Mowat coming straight into the team at Albion. No real affiliation for the club, but still giving 100% for the manager and the club, and I like to see that from a player coming into the side. And fair play to Alex Mowat for putting in such a great performance and really battling well. Obviously not his finest game in terms of contributions to goals, because obviously he didn't score a screamer in this one. But yeah, Connor Townsend did well, turning into a centre-back late on in the game, at half-time, and then really having to be pressurised late on in the game. I thought he really did himself proud and worked really hard. I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he did in the game. Obviously, transforming into a completely different position is by no means easy. And I think he's one of the most underrated left-backs in the league, personally. I think, you look at the other teams and what they've got. And it just looks completely fantastic how he works hard and how he really gets himself involved in the game. Pleased with Connor Townsend and what he did. And he worked really hard, and transforming into a centre-back mid-game is not easy, considering if you're not particularly used to that position, which I'm sure Connor Townsend isn't massively, but it shows a lot of fighting spirit, shows a lot of ability and a lot of versatility too for Connor Townsend to change position mid-game. I think the front three was a different issue. I thought Phillips played really well, worked hard. Obviously not used to being up front, and that's where you need your striker to come into the side and really take a bit of a weight off quite a few of the players in the side. But I think that, it was a bit difficult, to be quite honest, to take in. I thought we worked really hard, but I thought that I thought Matt Phillips worked really hard, but the front three either side of him, I think Dean Garner obviously does well in the pressing aspect and does okay on the ball, but not really producing the end product. Obviously, no goals and assists so far this season. Obviously, I've mentioned how he's starting quite infield and starting quite inwards when the ball is being played, and he's starting quite infield inside the fullback, which is not where he's most comfortable in my opinion. However, I do believe that Grady Dean Garner worked quite well in terms of pressing. However, I don't think he looked too great on the ball, and end product is still really lacking. I just think he needs that goal contribution to take his confidence up. Obviously, not looking great. Karlan Grant goal contributions none in the game. However, did look pretty okay on the ball. Not end product in that respect. His final product and end ball and final ball is looking a little bit concerning. I think there still leaves a little bit to be desired, to be honest, for Karlan Grant in that respect. He'll come through it and he'll get it right, I'm sure, but he's working pretty hard in that sort of that left wing role. I think he works really well with the pressing alongside Robinson, but I think Robinson was really missed. Sets the pace up front for me with the pressing, and then sets the pace with the passion and the desire for the club, and on the ball as well. I think he starts to interchange passes, and that really does help out the rest of our team. Hugo came on late on in the game. Well, I say late on in the game. He had about half an hour, didn't he, to try and work something out, and missed quite a big chance. He came on in the 57th minute and really did miss a large opportunity for Hugo. I'm not going to get on his back. Not going to get annoyed with him. But I thought he worked really hard when he came off the pitch. Missed a chance, but he did work hard, and I think that's a testament to what lots of Norwich fans have been saying to me about him. Obviously, if you want to go and check out Jordan Hugill in a bit more detail, there's a video on him, obviously our signing on loan, on season-long loan from Norwich. So if you want to check that out, go and check it out. I recommend you do so, because there's plenty information about him in that video that I did about him the other day. There'll be a link in the description. If you just click West Bromwich Albion content playlist 2021-22, you'll be able to see a video on Jordan Hugill. But I was really pleased with how hard he worked. He got himself stuck in, got involved in aerial battles, knocked the ball down a few times, and really well in that respect. So pleased with Jordan Hugill, pleased with how he played, and I'm sure there's more to come from him. A bit of a workhorse up front is something that we desperately need, but I'm hoping for another striker. There'll be a video coming out on deadline day about what I think we need to do on deadline day, because I don't want things to be left too late, as Albion normally do, but we'll see, of course. But a last-minute goal from Ajayi got us the points. I think we deserved it more than Peterborough. I think it was by far our worst performance under Blair and Ishmael. But these performances that you win and you shouldn't really deserve to win, are the ones that win you leagues, and they're the ones that win you promotions, in my opinion, because they're ones that you look at the game and you think, no, we didn't quite deserve the win today, but you think we've got the win. That's the performance that wins you. That's the performance that wins you leagues. That's the performance that wins you titles, by getting those goals late on in the game and scoring them quite well. So fair play to Albion for sticking with it. And Valérien Ismaël, late on in the game, we scored the goal, and he ran up the touchline and jumped on the players. It was great to see the passion. I know lots of people are saying, oh, it's out against the rules, but he got booked for it. Deserves his booking for that. So for me, I think we worked really hard, and to win the game late on in the game is fantastic. Just a few of your thoughts now whilst we're on the topic. Let's get straight into your thoughts on the game, and just take a look at what you guys said about the fixture and about the performance as a whole, because I think some of you are relatively impressed. But I think some of you were a little disappointed. So this one coming in from Joe says, I know we got a clean sheet, but did you feel the defence was a bit nervous and everything seemed quite rushed? Yeah, I think towards the end of the game, definitely, Joe. I think the ball was we're getting the ball forward really quickly, and it was coming straight back, and then we find ourselves outnumbered at the end of the game. But I suppose that's the risk that Valérien Ismaël was willing to take. He obviously wants to play his high octane style of football, but I think we were outnumbered at the back, but they were outnumbered at the back. It kind of worked itself out, and it could have been them who won. It could have been them who nicked the last-minute goal. And I'm sure that they wouldn't be, Peterborough fans and Peterborough's manager wouldn't be complaining if they were the ones to get the goal late on in the game. However, in that 5 minutes that was added on. However, it was us in the end. It just happened to be us. It happened to fall in the right place. Phillips, with his determination, driving the ball forward, and did really well in that position, ended up with the goal. And yeah, I think if Peterborough had scored that goal, they'd have been perfectly happy with the amount of time added on, considering, Darren Ferguson's dad invented Fergie time, and we scored in Fergie time. So I don't think he can be complaining by any margin. We wasted a bit of time during the game, but that got added on at the end. It's not like we limited their opportunities to win the game. But yeah, I think in terms of your question, Joe, I did feel that the defence was a bit nervous and a bit rocky at the back. I was a bit disappointed with some of the defensive organisation at times where we ended up outnumbered. Ian has said, I think that's a game that we could have easily lost last season or the one before. It wasn't our best performance and it stuck at it and paid off, and he's very pleased with the great start to the season. Ian, so am I. I'm really pleased with what happened in the game and how we ended up winning it. Those performances, as I said, win you titles, win you leagues, win you promotions. You don't get through games when you're playing well and then you lose. You don't get through games when you're playing badly and you lose. You get through games when you play pretty badly and you win, and that's how you get through the league, and that's how you will get through the championship this season. But that brings me to the end of this Baggies podcast episode. Obviously, Darren Ferguson showing his tears at the end of the game by saying Valérien Ismaël is not the god of football. He is the god of football. He's done us a fantastic job so far, and we're really pleased with how he's done. But that does bring me to the end of the Baggies podcast, where, of course, we gave you the latest news, views, and opinions on all things Albion. I'll see you in the next episode, which will be very soon. But obviously, keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, because there'll be 2 videos coming over the next few days about Jason Malumbi, our new signing from Brighton and Hove Albion on a season-long loan, and also a little video on what I think we should do on deadline day. But that does bring me to the end of the Baggies podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.